Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I've got a special guest, Dan Golden from Plano, Texas, on a Zoom chat. And he's, uh, remember when I solicited comments for video suggestions, and somebody wanted to know about the future of stamp clubs. And uh, Dan happens to belong to a stamp club, and he's going to tell us his experience. So, first of all, I want him to introduce himself to you. Dan, take it away.
Howdy, everybody. My name's Dan, as Ted mentioned. I'm a amateur philatelist, as I'm sure most of us are. I've been collecting for about 3 years. I can kind of share some of my story. I responded to a piece of junk mail from Mystic Stamp Company, and they said, "Send this in, and we'll send you 3 free historic MIT stamps." And they sent me these guys. And this one, all the way on your left, right here, which is Ted. You can bring that up in the video.
It's
So that's
actually on our right.
on your right? Oh, my bad. My left. What am I saying? I've only known directions for 29 years. But that's US number 905. And just the symbolism behind that stamp, the eagle holding the wings, the wind of war emblazoned at the bottom, the V shape of the wings, V for victory, just all that leapt off the page at me. And I got excited and I was holding a piece of history. It connected me to the past. And I thought, if this stamp is able to do this, there's hundreds, if not thousands more out there that are going to do the same. And it sparked this curiosity and I never looked back. And so at the age of 26, I began collecting, which is a lot later in life than quite a few stamp collectors, but I like to wear that as a badge of honor right here.
Yeah.
I found Ted because I, when I started collecting, had no knowledge of what to do or how to do it. So I went on YouTube and essentially looked up, how to collect stamps. And for whatever reason, the algorithm completely ignored Exploring Stamps' channel. Graham Beck, I apologize to you personally for the YouTube algorithm, but I found Ted. He was the first video that was recommended. So I watched that, and then I watched the next one and the next one after that, and watched all of his videos. I discovered he lives in Texas, which at the time, or rather lived in Texas. And at the time, that was, his address was 45 minutes from me. So I sent him a letter, and he and I have been chatting ever since. And that was 3 years ago this month. So that's kind of how I started. That's kind of how I found Ted. And it's an honor to be here with all of you today talking about stamps. I primarily limit myself to 3 countries: the United States, Ireland, Germany, US, because it's most accessible. It's the easiest for me to fill out my collection. I'm Irish Catholic, so you got to collect Ireland. It'd be unpatriotic of me not to. And then Germany, because I just over the years, you and I have communicated back and forth quite a bit. We've sent each other different things, and you've sent me a whole lot of Germany stamps over the years. And thank you for that, by the way. And the more that kept coming in, the more I realized, I guess I collect Germany now. So I collect Germany, and I mean, who doesn't love German stamps? There's these stamps here that I'll probably show you again later on in the video. But I mean, look at how beautiful those stamps are. They're coal mining stamps. But I just love that the way I think you could probably bring up an image of them on the video itself. But they're coal mining stamps. I only have 2 of the 4 of the set, but I just love the way that the color contrasts with the subject to kind of just make it pop. And I mean, to me, it's a beautiful stamp, and this is just an average run-of-the-mill stamp. So I mean, it's exciting. I really like how beautiful German stamps are, but I would say the U.S. and Ireland are definitely more of my priorities. But I also, in terms of topics, I really like sports, baseball, hockey, football, soccer. Surprisingly, not really basketball or the Olympics. I'm just, for whatever reason, those just don't really appeal to me. I enjoy, tall ships or naval ships because my dad was in the Navy. So, go Navy, beat Army. I enjoy maps because any stamp is just a tiny little piece of artwork, and the more detail you can put on there that makes sense and is well done, the cooler I think it is. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of detail on maps. And so if you can put a map on there, I love that. I'm also really big into, air mails and trains because, uh, my grandfather loved trains. He put that onto my dad, and my dad put that onto me. And so trains on stamps, locomotives on stamps are really exciting to me. I also love birds because my father-in-law is a big birder, and he's kind of, you crave the father of, or you crave the approval of your father-in-law.
Uh,
So of course I've gotten into birds as well. And then being that I'm Catholic, Christmas is my favorite holiday, and so I really love Christmas stamps just in general. Those have always had a soft spot in my heart. And then I also really like first day covers. I particularly like making the cachets myself and sending them off to get stamped. I realize it's a, more or less canceled to order stamp, but I like the experience of,
yeah.
making a D&D cachet and sending it off. And that's been enjoyable to
Mm.
me always. Oh, I also really enjoy collecting covers, particularly covers that, mean something to me, whether they be Irish, American, whatever. I actually have a handful here that I would like to show off if that's allowed.
Absolutely.
I There's this one I picked up at the last TSDA show, Texas Stamp Dealers Association. It's a Zeppelin cover that has, or rather, it was flown on a Zeppelin, and I just love the fact that it has so many different cancellation marks on it. Not too many on the backside, but on the front side, I mean, you almost can't read the address. Um,
Yeah.
and I find that hilarious. Um, there's this at the same show. I found this. Like I said, I grew up in Chicago, and there's this postcard for the World's Columbian Exposition, which was, as most of us know, the first commemorative stamps were issued in conjunction with the World's Columbian Exposition. And growing up in Chicago, this is such a big piece of Chicago history that I saw this, and it's blank. It's nobody wrote on it, so I find it. It's not necessarily mint per se, but it's clean, and
Mm.
I like that. I found this one too. This actually came from an APS stamp booklet, which is one of the membership benefits of joining a club. For the record, we'll get into that. But if you notice, this was sent to Edinburgh, Pennsylvania, and I actually lived in Pennsylvania in Edinburgh, and I
Mm.
worked at that school.
Wow.
It is now, at the time I was there, it was Edinburgh University, and it is now, I believe, West Penn University, Edinburgh, something like that. It changed names. They went through a rebranding recently, but I lived, uh, you know, 2 blocks from this address. And so
Uh,
the fact that this not only has an American special delivery stamp on there, but a Canadian stamp on there as
yeah.
well. And it was mailed from Toronto, and it has an Erie, Pennsylvania postmark and an
Hmm.
Edinburgh, Pennsylvania postmark. I think that's upside down. There we go.
What year is
Uh,
it from?
from 1921,
Hmm.
almost 100 years before I lived in Edinburgh. And then the last one I've got here, this came from Ireland, from Golden, Ireland, the town that bears my last name.
There you go.
And I find that incredible. So I wanted to add a cover from Ireland, from Golden, Ireland, to my collection because, like I said, my family is probably from Golden. But how do I do that? I could scour the internet, or I could try to write to somebody in Ireland and say, "Can you send me something from Golden?" But who do you write to in Ireland? They don't know in Ireland. So I actually found the local church, and I don't know if you can see that little engraving that's in
Oh, yeah,
Latin,
yeah. Blind
the
stamp.
yeah, the
Mhm.
ecclesiastical something or other from Golden, Ireland, the church, the Catholic Church. I wrote to the priest and I said, "This is going to sound really weird and really out of the blue, but here's my address. Can you just send this envelope back to me?" And I'm a stamp collector. I just want to cover. And to my shock, he did. He actually even wrote me a small little letter that, I'm in his prayers and all this. But
Mm.
I love the fact that this happened. I mean, it's a connection I did not expect to have. and it's a fun little thing to add to my collection. So anyway, those are some of the things that I collect.
So I understand you belong to a stamp club. Since that's a major topic, tell us about that. Mid-City Stamp Club.
Of course. So I got into the Mid-City Stamp Club about a year ago, a little over a year ago. I had found their expo on. They do a yearly expo at uh, the Grapevine Convention Center, I believe it's called. And I missed the expo after circling it and waiting for months and looking forward to it. The weekend came, I just completely forgot about it. And I was so upset. And I looked up, the expo, when the next one was. And then I discovered it was run by the Mid City Stamp Club. And I thought, what the heck is that? So I looked it up online. Sure enough, it's a stamp club, as is the name implies. So I reached out to Rick Howell, found him on Facebook, and or found the club on Facebook, reached out to Rick Howell through there, and essentially said, what is this, and how can I join? And he told me, why don't you come to the Christmas party? And so I went to the Christmas party because free food, right? Who doesn't like
Yeah.
food? And I've been going to the meetings ever since. So that was about a year ago, and you know, in the fall of this past year, they were looking for a new vice president to take over their Flower Mound location, and I kind of told Rick, look, I don't know if I have really paid my dues yet, but I wouldn't mind taking on that leadership role and kind of helping better the club. So I ran unopposed for the vice presidency, and now I am the vice president of Flower Mound. So that's exciting, and now I've got to enact all of my goals for growth. So
All right. Well, that sounds great. So tell us more about the club then. How long have you been a member, and how many members do you have? And the drill.
yeah, of course. So I've been a member for about a year now. Been the vice president since about 3 weeks ago. And there's about 104, 105 members in our club, which, from my perspective, I don't know how big most stamp clubs are, but having triple digits is pretty good in my opinion. So I like that we're as good as we are.
I
Uh,
tell you what, I'm sorry to interrupt, but how many members? Before I did belong to MCSC for about 15 years ago until my work schedule put an end to that. But before I belonged there, I belonged to the Panther City. Uh, Fort Worth's nickname is Panther City because
really?
supposedly
Okay.
back around the turn of the century, the someone who came through, some journalist or someone, talked about how Fort Worth is such a quiet town that there's a panther was seen sleeping on the courthouse steps. So I got
Wow.
the nickname Panther City. Anyways, I belong to the Panther City Philatelic Society, and we were lucky if we had 5 people
Yeah.
at a meeting.
And from what I understand, that's fairly common, is that, there's a club might have 25 people on the roster and five of them show up, or, seven of them show up for a Christmas party or something. And that's sad. So I'm really liking that we have over 100. I feel like we're in a healthy spot. And then there's also been, since I joined last December, there's been, maybe 18 people, 19, 20 people, something in
Huh.
that neighborhood of people who have joined. So that's uh, we're seeing growth, which I like. Um, for all I know, they might be replacing the retirees that pass on, and so we might just be holding steady. But I'd rather be holding steady than shrinking.
Right.
And that's exciting. And then, like I said, I have ideas for growth that we can go over a little later. But right now, our club has 3 chapters. We've got meetings in Arlington, Granbury, and Flower Mound. There's about 25 people that show up to Arlington, and then about 10 to 15 or so that show up at Flower Mound and Granbury. And that way we're able to cover more of mostly the western half of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. And that's nice to kind of be able to serve that many cities in the area so more people can be involved. For the most part, it's a lot of retirees because most often people on a Wednesday night who can afford to meet and stay out until 9:30
Yeah.
are going to be the retirees. I have work each morning and I have to be up at 4 a.m. So that's a
Uh,
little tough for me to stay out past 9, but I make the sacrifice for the stamps. And we've got our meetings are kept fairly enjoyable, fairly lively. There's different programs that put members will put on. There was a Stamps of New Guinea presentation put on. You mentioned back in the day you would put on a program about stamps made with different kinds of material.
uh,
And that I wasn't there at the time, but that sounds pretty dang interesting. And then we always play a game called Where in the World Am I? Somebody will give all sorts of stamp themed clues to a country, and everybody's got to kind of guess what country we're in, and that's kind of a fairly new thing that we've started, but I really enjoy it. And then there's just typically show and tell, and you bring in something cool, and you bring in something like this, which is what my wife's Christmas present came in.
hmm.
Just show off all the different stamps on there, and everybody enjoys that. It's just nice to be able to share that fellowship together and our shared love of stamps.
What are some of the other benefits? I know when I was there, we had the American Philatelic Society, the APS circuit books, the approval books, where you could, each book is a different topic or country, and you just go through and they're all priced. They're all from various APS members, and you could pick up some good bargains out of those
Oh,
books.
absolutely. I found one of my interests is Germany. It's probably my third interest past the United States and Ireland, but having those booklets allows me to, I tend to not get too many German stamps at different shows. But I mean, I got these right here. There's coal mining stamps there on the right and Christmas stamps on the left. And then there's these stamps as well that I got for Germany. All of these were within the last couple of months. Um, and just having that added benefit of being able to go through these different books and fill out your collection and find things that you didn't know that you liked. Just this last week, I found Canadian stamps that were of Canada geese, and
Mhm.
birds are one of my topics of interest, and
You know, you said that right. Canada geese. I read they're not Canadian geese.
they're
They're
not.
they're not. They're Canada geese.
I knew somebody that was a very big stickler of that, and he drilled it into my head. They are
Oh
Canada geese, not
yeah.
Canadian geese, Canada
Yeah.
geese.
So
So
yeah, and so talking about those circuit books, that is a definite benefit as because the club picks up the tab for that. If anybody, for those out there watching, anybody can order these circuit books from the APS, but
yeah,
you have to pay shipping and you have to pay the insurance, which makes it, less cost efficient. At the
cost
club,
effective.
the club gets them shipped to the club, and they pay they pick up the tab for the shipping and insurance. So it's just the net cost of the stamp for the members. So that makes that a lot better.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that's just one of the benefits there are. I mean, there's also the monthly newsletters that we do. There's a lot of different clubs that will do a quarterly or bi-monthly, or every other month rather. These
Hey,
bi-monthly.
speaking of which, I read that your newsletter got an award.
Yeah, we actually won the Grand National Champion Award this year from the APS. So nothing like being the best of the best, and our editor Peter Elias has a huge hand in that. So thanks be to Peter there. That's he did a great job, and
Yeah.
happy that we have that to brag about now. Um, but I mean,
And you're a writer too, right? You contribute
I've,
articles.
I've contributed a handful of articles. I tend to try not to toot my own horn on that, but I enjoy writing. I enjoy contributing when I can, and the fact that I was able to write a handful of articles for a championship newsletter is a nice little boost to the confidence for sure.
Yeah.
But again, Peter's the one who has the bigger hand in that. The credit should absolutely go to him. But I mean, what I like about our newsletters, especially, is that they're all original content too. So you're not getting oh well, this article was in Lens and this article was in Dallas Park City's newsletter. You're getting every single one of these articles is being published for the first time right here,
Mhm.
and we do that every month, and it's 14 pages, 16 pages, however many pages it is that month. And I really enjoy that. That's a really fun thing this is my philatelic, uh, you know, this is my philatelic fix each month is
Yeah.
this newsletter. And, there's a lot of clubs out there that'll do a quarterly newsletter or every other month newsletter. There's a club in Illinois that I saw that they do a newsletter when they have enough material for one, whenever that is. And is that, once every 2 months, once every 6 months? Who knows? But I don't like that aspect of it because you don't know what you're getting, and I like that every month we have one. Anyway, enough about the newsletter though. There's also
Yeah.
member auctions. There's clean out your closet sales where you can get some really good bargains on things, and other members will take anything extra that they have and try to sell it. And you can get a brand new stock book or something, or rather a used stock book, new to you, brand new to you, stock
Mhm.
for fraction of the cost, and that's really enjoyable. There's also the lending library that has all sorts of reference material for you. You could learn almost anything you want from that
Mhm.
philatelic library that the club has. There's also the MCSC Expo that I briefly mentioned. They put on a, a a stamp show. The club puts on a stamp show each year in Grapevine, and dozens of different dealers from around the country and frankly around the world. There's one guy that comes from Britain, so I'll say around the world. Uh, you know, they put they set up their booths, and you've got 2 days to really enjoy the stamp show and kind of add to your collection. And I enjoy that. That's just a 20-minute drive.
Yeah.
And then so the social aspect of philately. There's the philately itself is a very solitary hobby. You don't trade stamps with other
Right.
collectors the way you do baseball cards, for example. And so, I mean, you can sit at your desk and soak stamps and be content to just do that every day, all day, and you would never be bored. I would never be bored. But
Mhm.
the issue is, where does the social aspect come in if you don't have a club? It doesn't. And so having that other, that fellowship with other collectors where you're sharing your love of stamps with each other,
Right.
you're building your knowledge off of one another, and kind of, I mean, there's a wealth of philatelic knowledge out there that
Mhm.
club can offer you, especially for a new collector. Like, I'm relatively new. There's so much I don't know, and I've relied on them dozens of times, and I've
Mhm.
really enjoyed that.
Also,
Uh,
yeah, like the closest thing to that is maybe a stamp forum online. And
yeah,
that, of course, it happens in slow motion.
yeah, that's true. And I mean, that's that my wife has kind of asked me before whether or not, an in-person club is better than an online club. She asks that actually because I we have a toddler daughter and she's not the easiest to watch alone. She gives us
Uh,
she's in her terrible twos. And so my wife will ask me, do you really need to go to a stamp club in person?
or
Or,
can't you
can you do
take
that
her with
online?
you?
I've taken her with me once, and she was very well behaved. And she apparently, my wife picked her up and brought her back home, and she was not very well behaved after. So maybe she likes the stamps. Maybe that's a good sign. Um, but that being said, you know, online clubs versus in-person clubs, like I was harping on with the social aspect of things, the connection you have with other stamp collectors is stronger when you're in person, when you can chat with each other. You and I have emailed each other and written letters to each other dozens of times. That's great, but this is the first time we're actually talking in
Yeah.
person, and I love it. We should do this more often. But that being said, more people can be reached online. YouTube is a fantastic resource for philately. I mean, that's how I frankly helped get started and fanned the flames. But are the connections really stronger? Are they actually really do you feel like you have this sense of belonging to a club? And frankly, I don't. Maybe other people do, but I don't. I really enjoy that in-person uh, aspect to everything there. And so, with that being in mind, I really want to grow the club itself and see how many more people we can get to enjoy what I enjoy, that in-person connection. And I mean, so to kind of go into some of my ideas for growth, if that's okay. Uh, the I mean, there's all sorts of teenagers out there that I know would be very interested in this as a hobby if they were just exposed to it. But there's so many that, are just blinded by their video games, or they're blinded by their phones that are never more than a few inches from them, right?
And
Um,
most of them probably don't even know what a stamp is. No one
yeah,
uses mail.
there's quite a few people that don't realize that, stamps are a thing, and if they do, they don't realize the diversity that is out there with the world of philately. It's a whole world out there that I didn't know existed. And if they could just be exposed once, I mean that could be enough for a spark, like I was with US 905 there. And so one of my ideas is I would love to see for our expo, we're always looking for volunteers. We could always use teenagers that are looking for service hours. That's something that I would not mind seeing is, okay, these two 18-year-olds are gonna help out with security and kind of patrol the bourse and make sure that people aren't trying to steal anything. And maybe these four other teenagers are helping set up tables and helping, sign people in and whatnot. That's exciting to me. That represents an opportunity because as they're walking around the bourse, they're going to see that, you know, everybody's picking up stamps with these tongs. Why not use their fingers,
Mhm.
right? What is so special about this stamp that we can't use our fingers on it? And it might be because it's penny black or something, and we don't want to damage it. And they might see another stamp that's $600. Why is that one $600? All it is a little piece of paper. And it's going to spark an interest. And if we can spark that interest and fan it into a flame, we've got a new stamp collector on our hands that we didn't have before. Um, I mean, there's also ideas I have for, library presentations, school presentations. Maybe we could get school kids to send letters to troops overseas or something, right? One of the big ideas I have that I would really like to pursue is I'm calling it a hobby fair in my mind. There's all sorts of hobbies out there that are dying because kids are just, like I said, they're just glued to their cell phones. They're just not spending time with hobbies. They're spending time with their electric boxes in their phone in their pockets. And so they if we could combine all sorts of hobbies together in one room, give every hobby a table. Maybe there's 8 tables, there's 8 different hobbies. There's knitting here, stamp collecting here, coin collecting here, baseball cards here. And we give kids, who are coming through the agency to choose whatever hobby interests them, right? If you're interested in knitting, go to the knitting table. If you're interested in photography, go to the photography table. If you're interested in bird watching, go to the bird watching table. If you're interested in stamps, there are thousands upon thousands of extra stamps in almost every collector's album. Extra stamps that are, the used, worthless ones that are, frankly, they could be used for kindling for a grill sometimes. I mean, they're not worth the paper they're printed on. And if you can lay all those out on a table and tell kids, kids, take a little baggie and take home 30 stamps that interest you. I guarantee you, you will get a whole lot of kids that come and look through the stamps and pick through and, wow, I like this, V for victory, win the war stamp, the one that got me started. Or, I like this Statue of Liberty that says for liberty on it. All
Or
those.
especially now that they're, appealing more to modern culture with
Yeah.
rock groups on them and
Yeah. Or Dungeons
cartoons and
and
such.
Dragons is there,
Dungeons, Harry Potter.
There's SpongeBob. It just got announced there's going to be a SpongeBob stamp for USPS now, which I'm excited for because I grew up on SpongeBob, so I'm going to get that stamp. But if we can just expose them and show them the interest, again, there might be 50 kids that walk past this and don't give it a second glance. There might be 25 that actually look through and get the stamps and get excited for them, and then a week later the fire has burned out and they're
Yeah.
done with it. But we might get five, and we might get five kids that become stamp collectors from that. And we didn't have those five kids before. They weren't exposed. And so I would really like to see something like that happen because, especially this hobby fair idea, if you get all these different hobbies together, everybody wins. Everybody will see a boost in their interest, unless they've got a very, for lack of a better word, a lame hobby. You know, they will see some interest because people will be interested in it. I would like to see that happen at a school. I've been trying to get in contact with the right individuals to see if that can happen, and it's a little slow going, but I'm going to keep pursuing it, and hopefully by this time next year we've got something some positive development on that, and that's the dream at least. So
Mhm. So, all right. Well, I guess the main question from that comment about stamp clubs is what's the future of stamp clubs? You said you have about 100 members or so for MCSC, and that covers a pretty populous area. The Dallas Fort Worth area. I don't know. It's a couple million people, so it's kind of a fairly low percentage. So you can imagine a smaller populated area. It might be tough to find. Well, like I said, even in Fort Worth, there was only five people coming to meetings. So I guess all you need is two, though, for a club.
realistically, yeah, all you need is two.
Yeah.
The that'd be a pretty tiny club, and that'd be pretty awkward if one person suddenly gave up the club or just sick one day, and it's just one person collecting stamps. In which case, we're back to square one of you're just
Mhm.
at your desk playing with stamps. But I think the future holds. I mentioned, online. There's a lot of online clubs out there. There's a lot of online forums. Those are great. I enjoy them, but again, there nothing can replace in-person activities together. Nothing can replace uh, in person. It's sort of like, my wife and I, we were long distance for 2 years before we got married. And there's nothing like going on a date in person.
You're
Uh,
right.
and it's just, you can chat with them, you can talk to them, you can message them all you want, but there's nothing like going on a date in person. And
My wife and I, China, US,
yeah,
at the
right.
beginning.
It's it's tough. It's tough. And I mean, granted, we were in China and US. I was living in Ohio for a year. She was in Illinois. So we were about 2.5 hours away. And then I moved to Pennsylvania and we became 8 hours away.
Hmm.
And those were tough. But we're married now. We got through it. But like I said, there's nothing like going on a date in person. There's nothing like going to a stamp club
Yeah.
in person.
I guess
And
also the onus is on the clubs too to get the word. You didn't even know there was any clubs
oh
around.
my
So,
gosh, yeah. And that's
they,
something that, I mean, the idea didn't even occur to me that there could be a club.
so there
And
has to be a
then,
way for the stamps to the clubs to publicize themselves. I mean, there's no newspapers to speak of anymore,
yeah, ever
and
since Lynn's left, it's a little harder to get that
yeah.
satisfied now. But I mean, I don't quite have ideas about that other than, you advertise to schools and you advertise to libraries, and there's apparently a lot of red tape with that I'm discovering. But we could find a way to do that and just get the word out. I
Well,
mean,
that's where a forum, stamp forum, would come in handy too, though. Have a specific board for stamps for clubs to advertise themselves.
oh yeah, absolutely. And so, I mean, maybe we can utilize that somehow in the future. I haven't quite thought of those ideas yet. But luckily there's 100 plus other people in the club that can think of the ideas too. So I'm not the only one trying to save the club here. Not that the club needs saving, but I'm not the only one that has this goal for,
Right. Keep it thriving at least.
yeah, keep it thriving. But like you said, if we could get the word out, that's half the battle right there. Because if
Mhm.
you can just get people exposed to stamps, get people, spark the interest. And once they've sparked the interest, you got to follow up on it somehow. You got to
Mhm.
make them realize that one, there's a club, and two, they should join the club for these benefits that they might not know exist. Because I didn't know they existed until I joined the club. So, but I think the future is overall bright. I'm definitely not as pessimistic as I was, say, 2 years ago about stamps because I when I joined, people or when I started the hobby, people kind of said, oh, you're gonna die and be the last stamp collector out there. And I'm glad to see that's not going to be the case. I help out with a Knights of Columbus breakfast every month, and I promise this is related. I help out with a stamp or with a Knights of Columbus breakfast every month, and there's usually a couple Boy Scouts nearby me who are helping me, make the waffles and pancakes and whatnot. And I always tell them about stamps because they always ask, how, how's your month been? How's your week been or whatever. And I usually mention to them whatever new fun, cool stamps I got. When I first got these penny blacks, I couldn't tell enough people about them. I was
Huh.
excited. They're not particularly good penny blacks, but I got them and they're mine. And I got excited about that.
Yeah.
Telling everybody. And or when I found this is something I really want to show you. This is a postcard of the Indiana Harbor Belt. All right. It's a railroad that went through Chicago, my hometown. And uh, my grandfather was very into trains, into railroads. And that rubbed off on my father, that then rubbed off on me. So I, saw this, but my dad was the one that pointed out on the other side of the postcard. It's mostly blank. There's a name
Mhm.
there. But notice who took the photo.
Uh-huh.
Thomas J. Golden. That's my grandfather. He took
Huh.
this photo. And when I discovered that, again, I couldn't tell enough people about it. And so if, you know, these Boy Scouts are becoming interested in stamps. And apparently there's a stamp collecting merit badge out there that I was not aware of when I was a
Huh.
Boy Scout. Feel like that was a lost opportunity. But they're going to try to pursue something like that, and if they can, do some sort of, if the club can maybe sponsor a workshop for something like that. That's interest. That could be something. Um, and so I'm excited to see what the future holds. I'm excited to see where stamp clubs can continue to thrive and continue to grow in the future, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
All right. Hey, well, thanks for joining us today. Zoom is
Oh,
giving me the warning. Anyways, thanks for joining us here today. And if anyone else would like to be a guest on my show, give me a buzz on email, and we can arrange a meeting too. So until next time, this is Ted the Talking Stamp Collector, wishing you all happy stamping.